So we can start the meeting today with the adoption of the agenda. I put a motion forward to add a motion to close, or
Yep, a motion to close, yes.
does anyone?
I can second that.
Okay.
Hey, Parker.
And then, okay, any other additions to the agenda? Okay. Did everyone have a chance to review the minutes from last?
I can see one very minor error actually.
Okay. What do we got?
So, absent. So Brent Nixon was absent, but it's true that he was absent, but he's not with Squamish Access Society.
Wow.
He was absent from another society.
From which society?
He was absent from the Climbers Access Society of BC.
Okay.
I think he's the alternate. I don't think he's never been to this meeting, has he?
Once, I think.
Oh, okay. But he's the alternate.
Any other changes to the minutes? Does someone want to put motion forward to approve the minutes? Toby?
I will.
And anyone
I'll
second?
second.
Thank you. Okay, so business arising. I've added my own notes today to the agenda, and I kind of, in business arising, I added, there was just kind of one miscellaneous action item from last week or last meeting that didn't really fall under any other category. So one of the things we talked about, the potential of having kind of like a SharePoint, like information share source. You guys said you would follow up.
I just saw that on the minutes. I'm sorry, I haven't actually looked into that, so
No worries.
I'll look into it. I know as a district we've started using a different extranet
Okay.
service, so I'll see if it will be the same one, if that would work.
Any other items arising? Okay, so Sue, do you want to go ahead with budget update?
Sure. Because I didn't quite go into details what was asked back here for 2016 and 2017, but I do have 2018. So the committee operating budget for 2018 is $5,000. Zero has been spent to date. Contract services, $24,000. Year-to-date expense, $5,196.54, remaining $18,803.46. And the monthly summary of the monthly expenses, maintenance, contract, and plea. Previous business, general maintenance, ongoing washroom, litter brushing, because this was back in the summer, I guess, when I actually was last here. Due to the dry weather conditions this season, most brushing is done by hand to avoid any scary issues. Remove old smoke glove signage, lower parking lot complete. So new stuff, so general maintenance is ongoing, washing, litter brushing. We did a fire pit removal up at Neaton Pool. No campfire signs. Wasn't sure whether that was something you guys were interested in having in the park. It's kind of a general rule that no, you don't have campfires in the park. But I left it on there as a, not sure. Picnic tables, there's been talk about picnic tables to put in a couple places. And, yeah, 2 picnic tables.
Yeah.
Was there a confirmation of that wanting to be done and come out of the operating budget of the
Yes.
committee?
We had a motion
Yeah, it's on the-
put forward at the last
So
meeting.
that, I'm sorry, then that I missed. So that was a definite go. They run about $1,400 each.
Yeah, and for 2 to go at free and easy, and for it to come out of the operating budget.
Okay. And knowing that they will run about $1,400 each.
Yeah.
Okay.
Is everyone okay with that? Show of hands?
Okay.
We put
so-
forward the motion
Wrong.
last time, so.
So, because the sooner we get them ordered, the sooner So,
That was the main thing Brian wanted to bring up at this meeting. actually.
Yes.
okay, so that,
Yeah.
done.
Yeah.
With regards to the no fire signs, I think it would be a good idea because we did have that fire pit at the top of Meeting Cool, and just a reminder, people, last year we had people camping there, and.
Yeah, it's only all this stuff's just gonna keep getting worse, isn't it?
Have we got no camping signs already out there?
There is one, I believe, in the parking lot, like at
I saw that.
the main sign, but we could put a no camping or fires, or I don't know what signs the district uses.
Probably at the, around the play park area, right?
Around the play park?
Good to have all this kind of signage, yeah.
I mean,
It's definitely another entry point for people.
it should be a given in how many signs we.
Yeah.
I mean, the fire pit that wasn't actually, it was just done right on top of the rock. And
Yeah.
it was scrubbed and cleaned and so forth, so.
Okay, thank you.
But we can get a few here and there, just so people know, whether even it's just at the entrances or like the kiosks at the bottom, like, it should be a given, but we just don't know.
I think sort of with other like climber issues in the corridor, where Squamish Access Society is seeing if we crack down on these things right away,
Yeah.
like put up signs and remove fire pits and tell people where they can camp and where they can't camp, then it's more effective than if we do it mid-season. So
And I just realized as I did this, because I was going over previous minutes or previous a report that I've done, and I guess when I pressed send, not all my notes were actually on here, and this is some of the one that I did probably about a year ago. And so the trail stuff, that was actually, I left that as a blank, and I'm looking at it going, what's that doing there? There shouldn't be anything underneath there, but there is, and that's really old stuff. So, I do apologize. I thought I had it all tickety-boo when I sent it off to Sarah.
happens to me
So
too.
I apologize. I read it and I reread it. Apparently I need to reread it one more time. So that's all I really, I do have more, unfortunately. It's not a whole bunch more, but it's not on my list. So if you guys have anything for us,
Would it ever be, would the district ever think of advertising, or not advertising so much as posting announcements or the lot to social media sites?
sorry for,
So say for instance there was a closure of the park for camp for basically people accessing it, period. Maybe there's cougar, wildfire, whatever danger there may be. Would the district ever look at posting a notice to various social media sites? There are different forum
Yeah, well,
boards,
yes.
there are Facebook sites, there are these sorts of things.
Wild Safe BC, if there was such as a bear living in the area type thing, or if there was a cougar sighting or any wildlife sighting, Wild Safe BC would get involved in that, and it would be posted through our social media network.
I know it would be posted to the district's outward-facing social media network sites, but actually going actively to, there's climbing forum boards. There are different sites that could actually reach people maybe better than putting it on the district of Squamish social media feed that a lot of people maybe don't know of when they're coming to visit, or wouldn't even think of going to.
That's true. It's something I'd have to talk with.
I'm sure it would get shared.
I think it was
Yeah.
shared, yeah, if it was relevant. I'm surprised, I mean, people do seem to look at the district site. I see things shared from there
Yeah.
from time to time.
Yeah.
But
I
how,
mean, rather than sort of relying on the sharing thing, looking at actually being a little bit more proactive about it.
A lot of people get the district email. I do.
I do.
Actually,
Like
good.
like there was that Masheter Bear
yes,
thing a little while ago, and I think that got shared around to various
that went
Facebook
out,
pages.
yeah.
And the thing with sharing is, I mean, it's probably going to get shared to pages you wouldn't even think of putting it on.
And then also, and as of recent, I don't know if anybody, and of course this is not near the Smoke Bluffs, but at the other end of town there, up through the Ray Peters Trail, of course.
Oh, the
There's
coyote,
been
coyote
coyote
yeah.
activity and so
Wolves, yeah,
forth, so,
yeah.
so the information is getting out there.
Mhm.
Can we do a little more? We'd have to consult with our media folks to see how far they would venture out.
Yeah, even something like we're talking about camping and fires, putting out a notice, reminding people about early in the season about camping and fires in the smoke bluffs.
Well, you know that we started as of the 1st to lock up the bluffs at night. So we do have a security outfit that will be going in and closing the park as of 10 o'clock, and people will hopefully, be gone at that point, or the gate's closed, and that is that.
Do you know if they've had issues with like having to evict people before they close the gate, or?
Well, because this is new, what we've had in the past is a lot of people have been, going, and I guess they've been doing a little overnight camping. Now that the parking lot's a little bit bigger, it's just getting more and more each year.
Yeah.
And so in the morning, 6, 7 o'clock, when staff are on their way in, we do a little peek into the lower parking lot and notice it's all turned into like, camper city or to that effect. So it's, this time we decided to do something about it, and so we've got black
Do you
test
think people are
security.
staying, even though, like, will they allow people to stay in the lot even if it's locked? Like if there's people camping there, or will they like evict those?
No, they'll actually ask those people to leave. They
Okay.
will need to leave. Unfortunately, if the vehicle isn't attended or there's nobody there, then that vehicle is going to be stuck in there for the night. But yeah, and I believe Black Tusk will make their rounds and keep an eye on things, especially if there's vehicles that do get left behind. So
Okay. Great.
That reminds me of something actually. With the round table item that came up about the parking lot and the business there, should that have been dealt with under business arising, or does that naturally?
I had that on mine.
Somewhere else.
I missed that on my notes, but I did intend on talking about that. So, have you guys seen any updates on the courier service using the Bluffs lot?
Yeah, I had a few things to follow up with from last meeting. So that one, I did connect with our business license department, and I think it was, it's between, I need to look a bit more with bylaw as well. So the concern was partly that they're accessing from the parking lot, but also that there's some cars.
There are, I think, I would say there are two major issues. One is that they have, either legally or illegally, I don't know, they have that access into the parking lot. And actually, if the parking lot's been gated, they're being gated, which is fine by me. But I mean, they're being gated at night too.
by 10 o'clock.
Oh yeah,
So-
fine. I mean, anyway, I'm just mentioning that.
Yeah.
That entrance from that private lot, I don't know whether it's a legal entrance exit there or not, but because of the way that lot has been subdivided into two business areas, it's been subdivided by concrete, very large concrete blocks, so it's now two different areas. And I'm not being expert in these things, I don't know whether that's something that you can do with a lot of that type, whether you can put a business one side and a business the other side, and they have separate entrances and exits. But the courier service, which seems to be a very high frequency business with quite large trucks, is only able to use the entrance and exit, which is right by the Bluffs parking lot entrance and exit, which creates a hazard, I think, to bikes particularly, pedestrians, with cars coming in and out. It's not I think it's what people expect when they come in and out of there, that there's a courier service. I also noticed, further point on this, that the courier, because I drive past every day, is that the courier service people clearly arrive, park in the climbers parking lot, and then go to their business premises and leave their own parking space empty so that their trucks can come in and out. So that's not at this time of year, that's not a problem for anybody. But they clearly have 3 or 4 cars that are always using the public Bluffs parking lot rather than their own space.
The staff are parking
vehicles
there.
too.
Yeah, it's clear it is, because
Yeah.
they're the only people there at 8 a.m. when I drive my kids to school. So, and they're all neatly parked really close to their business. It's pretty clear what's going on.
We will look into that.
Yeah.
Is the lot legally subdivided, or is it still one single
As
lot?
I say, I'm no expert on any of these things. It is still, if you look on the web viewer for the
Yeah.
district, it is one lot.
Yeah, I didn't think it was subdivided.
No, but it is it is physically
Physically
it is
divided.
certainly physically divided.
There has been, Brian sent us a photo, or maybe it was you that sent
We've been talking
a
about this
photo.
for a long time.
Yeah, and it was of like the courier company vehicles parked in the Bluffs lot too.
Yeah, so at one point they actually had their vehicles were parked in the public parking space. I mean, the courier vehicles. Now it seems to be just the staff's own private vehicles, which are not branded, so it's, I guess, less obvious that they're using the public spaces.
And is this like we looked back in some old air photos and saw sort of a progression in that lot, but is this a recent
Well, so
business that you're noticing there, or?
So a year ago, we've been raising this issue, I think now 3 or 4 times in various different ways. A year or 2 ago, there was a mysterious sort of residential area / trailer park / business in there, with somebody who I think was a sledder or something. I don't know, but he had a sort of branded sledder media business operating out of there, and that's his truck or hers or whoever. They've moved their stuff into the middle of that lot, and now Whistler Courier have that zone that they were occupying. I mean, I would say that whole lot is a combination of multiple businesses plus multiple residential. And I would have thought if bylaw ever actually went there and asked some questions, they would find multiple things of interest. But it seems, however many times we mentioned it, nothing ever happens.
They've seen many little faces in there.
Send a note to bylaw.
We have
Requiring.
I mean, this original stuff. When with that original business there, we emailed bylaw.
Put in a formal complaint.
Yeah. And went through the sort of bylaw complaining form thing.
So Elaine, you said you guys were making some progress on kind of looking through, you guys were looking into air photos and I had a couple other items from last meeting as well. So there was one question that was it was unclear whether our budget, any leftover budget in the year gets carried forward.
No, it does not.
It doesn't?
No, if it's not used, it doesn't roll over to add to the following year's budget. So.
And then, I think you mentioned this briefly, Sue. The gentleman that was here last meeting said at some point they would provide a comprehensive budget breakdown, because I think it's pretty unclear to a number of us what amount of money is available for certain things. I guess he had put a bunch of numbers on the screen and we didn't quite get what they were.
I briefly saw that. So for the committee's operating budget, it resides at $5,000. The $24,000 that goes towards the service contract, and then we have a little bit of wiggle room in there.
Okay, so that's everything.
That is. It's pretty black and white. I think very few things came through the committee last year. I think Brian submitted a receipt, maybe 2, for some hooks or...
Oh, anchors.
Anchors, yes.
Materials.
And so that's what's been going through the operating budget of the committee. So, maybe we haven't been, or myself, haven't been good at expressing that this is, these funds
That's
are
what it is, okay.
for your operating funds.
Okay. So, does anyone else have anything for budget update or?
Maybe just for if we're looking to spend, a last bit of budget on things, picnic tables are a great one, but also things like, I know SAS has probably been shouldering the heavy part of the load with respect to anchors and whatnot, where, we could purchase them and then through the guides that are distribute them to the people that are doing, bolt upgrades in the park and whatnot.
Is that an option? Is that an option for the committee to take the remaining budget at a certain time in the year and put it towards something like that?
Well, it goes to, I guess, whatever you're needing in the, whatever makes the park go, kind of thing.
In the past, it's been done simply by Brian bringing a receipt and saying, hey, did you pay for this?
Yes, you just submit a receipt, we do an expense sheet.
Another thing we might want to consider is maybe we might need trail building supplies, the east side trail.
Yeah, so that's presumably something's going to come up later in the meeting.
Yes, I have that on the,
Yeah.
So in that respect, I'm just saying, you know, if you purchase something on behalf of the committee or however, and it goes through that fund, then you just submit the receipt and then
Okay.
we'll do an expense form and.
something we
Go from
should
there.
consider if our budget doesn't roll over, trying to, even if it means like anticipating needs for next year and purchasing materials with that or. Okay, so let's move on to events update. So we've got 2 events on the radar. Survival Run, we talked about briefly the last meeting. The organizer wasn't able to attend tonight. He wanted to, but he wasn't able to. So he sent me a map of the overview trails they like to use, but it wasn't specific as to, I think our main concern in the Bluffs is what obstacles they're gonna have and if there will be any. So he said they are doing it a little bit differently this year and I think maybe later in the year. So we have a little bit more time to hash out the details of that and make sure we're okay with that event. So he said next meeting he'll come.
Chrissy, when's the event?
That's a good question. I'll just pull up the permit from, or the email from Dylan.
July 25th, 26th?
Oh, yes. Okay, so it's not later in the year, but he said he's put in a permit for obstacles elsewhere. So depending on how successful he is with that, he might not even come through the Bluffs. So it's okay to push the details for the Bluffs till the next meeting, he said. And then another permit that's gone in is for the Treeline Women's Festival. I spoke with the organizer and she gave me just a little blurb to, is anyone familiar with it?
Women's Climbing Festival.
Yeah, it's basically, so she said, the event is aimed to celebrate the community of women in climbing and give them a place to nurture new skills and friendships in an environment free of judgment and intimidation. Clinics are led by female professional rock guides and provide the participants with a safe, supportive space to grow their skills in one of Canada's premier climbing destinations. So the event itself won't be, like the overall festival won't be held in the Bluffs, but they will be using the Bluffs for guiding. And Devin had mentioned that she did need permission from the committee to hold the clinics. And so does anyone have any issues with that? We don't usually give permission for guiding, but
When is it?
it's in August, mid-August.
I mean, it does seem strange actually, given that guides are often running clinics.
Yeah, I actually,
Yeah,
I've never actually had, like even Arc'teryx, the
Yeah.
Arc'teryx Festival, we don't receive, they don't ask
Yeah.
for permission for the Bluffs.
Yeah.
So I said I would put it forward to the committee and I didn't anticipate any issues, but
It kind of concerns me the other way around, that we shouldn't be asked about this really. I mean, if there's since there's years of precedent of just, I mean, guides operate under various.
I can talk to Devin about it as well.
Yeah.
So then, yeah, so just, we won't give permission because we don't want to set precedent that permission is needed for guiding in the Bluffs.
But maybe
Like-
because this is a number of clinics all at once.
I'm guessing that's not the reason then.
No, I don't think so. It's no different from any other festival where they'll have some clinics on the Chief, some at
Yeah.
Marin, some at,
Yeah.
so.
And they don't get permission for any of those things.
We don't receive event applications for those, so.
Have we established a code of conduct for guides? No, in terms of, say for instance, you come in with a festival and you bring 30 people up, and there's people who are there normally. Have we sort of provided any sort of guidance on how we would expect them to interact with the people who are normally there?
We haven't, but I think there hasn't historically been a ton of issues. And with the groups that do have big, like typically like the VOC has large groups, the local climbing access group, Squamish Access and CASBC's talked about them spreading out, and we kind of advocate for user-friendly practices in small areas and crowded areas.
And those
so.
wouldn't in fact be commercially guided anyway, those would simply be clubs.
Yeah.
Clubs doing, just bringing a lot of people, but not necessarily with commercial guides.
Typical of those clinics, you won't have more than eight people max, 6. So it's usually not an issue.
Yeah, for me, it's just a question.
Yeah.
It's not a high-level concern, but it's just a question: is do we have any reason to be involved at all?
I don't think so. I think the ACMG also I mean, that's sort of in guide training, that's one of the things they're supposed to
I
think
put
about.
her,
isn't it?
I told her to ask Devin, because I think for guiding in the Bluffs, you need to have a Squamish business permit.
Right,
So I think, and that was
Yeah.
just my own
Yeah.
advice, but,
yeah.
but yeah, I'll talk to Devin about this and let's just hold off on, but it shouldn't be an issue.
Because there's a similar situation in BC Parks, isn't there? BC Parks, you have to have a specific guide
Parks
license.
permit,
or
yeah.
permit, don't you?
Mhm.
So, yeah.
So, okay, and then we just won't set a precedent of these events
That
having
would
to
be
go through.
concern me, yeah, that we kind of create a new obstacle to people doing stuff that's already routine.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so I had on for capital management and maintenance priorities, we all took or a lot of us took a walk through on the East Side Trail. So I thought maybe we could talk about how do we want to move forward with this. Does anyone have ideas? One idea I had was getting it properly flagged out and looking at conflicts between the other trails that it goes through. And then, anyone else?
I've been doing it,
You have been?
and
Okay.
it's actually kind of flagged.
Oh, it is?
Well-
Oh, wow, great.
I'm not
This
sure
should
I
be
have
under
the exact
your-
same route that we did, though. I'm pretty
Okay.
sure it is. So, yeah, I'm very excited about it.
Okay. And how do you think, I was briefly looking at the mountain biking map when we were walking through, and there are quite a braid of trails that are on is there a way to establish that they're separate or?
Well, with a lot of the downhill sections that go across the granite and the big boulders, there's
Yeah.
always little deeks around for
Okay,
the riders that aren't so,
okay.
I don't know.
Matt, what do you think? Should it be completely separate?
My suggestion would be start from the top of the loop, make this connection first to the summit before working on this bottom loop down here.
Is it possible to share that?
Yeah, it's just the short connection from the top of the loop to the summit,
Yeah.
which is really pretty much established as an informal trail up there. I think that, sorry.
I was just gonna say, because we're filming this for the public, it would be great if Elaine could pull it up on the map.
Oh,
So
okay.
I
that,
think I have it.
Can we take a picture of it and email it to you?
It's just a standard smoke buff map. I think trail separation is great where possible, but multi-use trails also work in an area that isn't maybe heavily used, and you'd have to educate, your mountain bikers, your trails, motorbike riders, just that it's a multi-use trail and keep your heads up for pedestrians
And hikers too.
and hikers. Yeah, no, if we're building to a higher standard, like an actual pedestrian-only trail, separation is optimal.
There's a fairly obvious point about what you just said, which is that all that entire area is not in the park. So although we might want to do it, it's not in the park.
Oh.
So
And that's the one piece that's not in the park.
yeah, it's not in the
Rest
park.
of
I mean, we've talked separately. There may or may not have been discussions which we may or may not be privy to acquisitions of land that may or may not be pertinent to this, but it isn't in the park right now. Yeah.
Just the top section, just to the parcel,
It's still not in the park, though. It doesn't matter. That's
no,
all
this
it is.
part is, just this part right from here. Up, this part up to, and then it deeks around there. But this part is in the
Sorry,
park.
should we?
That's the
Do you want us
section
to
I was
hold off for a
suggesting.
sec?
Well, are you sure we don't know exactly where that line is?
Sorry, is that what I was doing?
Well,
The papers?
a lot of people.
Okay,
Okay.
sorry.
But I support the idea of a trail, and I think it's great that it is in an area that's used by the mountain bikers and the trails riders, and I think, as pedestrians, we just have to accept that. And I have no problem with us investing funds to upgrade the trail. I think that would be appreciated by pedestrians, trail runners, mountain bikers that maybe aren't at that level that want to, ride all the granite slabs or the big gaps.
Laura, which is the trail you've been hiking recently?
The one that we just did, you
So
called it
from-
the east side?
From up the east side, so up past Grand Dug and stuff.
Oh, there we go.
No, so from leaving, okay, let's just to keep it very
Top
simple.
of the hard stairs, and
Yeah.
then you veer off to the right.
Yeah.
And then, yeah,
Yeah, so that's kind of accurately the east side. That's
Yeah.
in the park and it's on the east
Yeah.
side. So there's a huge Doug fir, right?
Yes.
At a certain point. There's
Yes.
a cliff and a cliff right next to it.
And then there's a fallen tree with little stairs up it.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So that
that's the one.
was some work was done by this committee 2 or 3 years ago on that. So, I mean, I think I wanted to say is that there are parallels with I guess, work that's been going on in Murrin, led by climbers, where the intent is to build trails that link cliffs, and then that promotes development of cliffs and spreads people out. So that cliff which is called Grand Doug, on the east side, is in the park, has been developed, has never really become popular because it is hard to access and not signed. Rather contrary to what Matt was saying, I think, at least from my perspective, it makes that's a priority, is to do things that link within the park and link climbing areas. So there's that cliff, and then further up the hill there is another partially developed cliff, which is much closer to the Trials Bike sort of granite slabs area, so perhaps more. But that generally going up that east side close to the boundary, but still within the park, is where it adds value from a climber's point of view. And it is a fresh and it's a completely new trail, whereas the stuff, well, I mean, there's a trail already, but there isn't, it's an extremely rough trail, right?
I saw my first deer when I was doing it. I've never seen a deer in the park.
Yeah, so it's kind of wild,
amazing.
isn't it? Yeah.
So,
Beautiful there.
There's so many deer.
How many years have I been in there? Never. Bears, grouse, yeah, not a deer.
so if we've got it flagged, can we ask each of the individual groups that represent on the committee to take a look and make sure that it doesn't conflict with their user group, and then also put the word out for any trail building groups to get a hold of, say, Brian, if they want to do volunteer trail days? Is that something
I
we
think we
can?
need approval of it in some form
Oh,
before we
okay.
start building it.
Oh, okay, so district approval. So maybe we can
Definitely, because
map
it's a
it.
district park, so
Yeah,
I
okay.
think that we need the route mapped out, and then there needs to be some review from operations,
Okay.
probably against some of our trail standards. There needs to be some sort of a internal staff
Okay.
review. Yeah.
What's on that? I mean, what's your opinion about trails that are sort of in the park and out of the park in that context? I mean, if a recommendation comes from this committee and it actually includes building outside the park,
That's private
what's the
property.
response likely to be to that?
Well, certainly not, we wouldn't, there would be no approval, or I don't know how that would work on private
Yeah.
land exactly. The parcel to the north,
I mean, the
Is
stuff
Crown.
Matt's
Is that
talking about is
Crown or
Crown.
is this
Crown?
It's Crown,
So
yeah.
it means
Yeah.
applying for a section 57 or 56 on that, which,
We've tried to do,
yeah,
but because that's actually quarry, as part of the Mines Act, they will not entertain the idea of Section 57 or any other use.
So I think it
That's what
also,
we've come up against anyway.
I think it also actually goes into private land as well, where it comes out of that, where it goes kind of out to the right and back around. Sorry people watching video, but I think that's private.
The parcel with
That's-
mountains
Yeah,
land?
to the right of the cursor now
Okay.
is private land. So because of the way the cliffs run there, you actually have to kind of go around the back there. I mean, so I suppose what I'm trying to say is that the East Side Trail doesn't appear to present obstacles to a discussion because it is in the park, whereas doing anything else is more complicated. And at least from a climate perspective, doing something on the east side, even if it's only partially, even if it only starts by going some distance up the hill, it's adding value.
Yeah, it can have incremental benefit.
Yeah.
Okay, well,
Brian also suggested that it's good for people to see things like that big fir there. I mean, it's actually, that's one of the few, there aren't very many big Doug firs in the park around there, close to downtown. That is one of them.
and so I think the intention of our walk last month was to determine if there was a way to the summit within the park. So I guess that's not possible, right?
No, I think we've determined that it is very possible. It's getting off of the summit, if we consider it that way, coming up. So heading north against the east boundary, it's possible to stay in the park to the summit.
Is it?
Yeah,
Okay.
once we get
Okay, I
off-
didn't understand that.
Once we sort of hit the summit.
Okay, up here.
Yes, which is actually not in the park.
Yeah, it's not.
Well, it is municipal land though.
Okay.
Yeah, so the loop,
Okay, so once we come from there and try to make a loop out of it to get off of the summit?
we're out of the park, we're in Crown or private parcels.
Exactly, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
So if you take a look at the trail where South Side and White Bronco come together,
Yes.
if you move slightly to the left,
Yeah,
great, a little farther to the left, see that green line you're on now? Basically, between that green line and where South Slope comes up, in the band just to the left of that piece of property, in through the trees, the trail comes up generally, and then up to your left in that bend of Tree Hugger or Labor of Love,
Yeah,
whatever I call it,
yeah.
and hits the bend on the corner. So heading over like that now to your left. Right where the word Tree Hugger is, that's where it kicks in.
Mhm.
So it comes through the band of trees from that
Okay.
corner down below up to the word Tree Hugger-ish.
Yeah. That's my understanding too. I don't think there are existing roughed out trails of various kinds around there, and they're all within the park.
Basically, they exist.
Well,
And they
once
just-
you get actually close to the little summit municipal parcel, you're on bare granite of various kinds. I presume you guys walked that when I'm sorry I wasn't there.
It was
Um,
great.
Yeah, so you walked, yeah.
It's been walked in
Great.
GPS.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay,
yeah,
so,
yeah.
did you GPS it, Spencer?
I did as well.
Okay, maybe we could send that to the district.
I mean, when Wes and Susan and I did our flagging of the boundary way back, it was very clear how that all worked up there, where the corner is.
So Spencer, could you send that
Yeah, I'll
information?
clean it up and send it.
Maybe we can get that into,
But if we wanted to make progress on this, because we won't have another meeting until the fall, will we?
Will there be the July walkthrough
Yeah.
Or the
again?
July
Yes.
walkthrough, and we make decisions in the July walkthrough.
We don't usually. But-
So, I mean, if we
No,
wanted
we
to
don't
actually
typically.
sort of make any kind of start, if we make a decision in the fall, we're suddenly going to be in the rainy season.
Next year,
where
yeah.
Nothing will, whereas if we're able to make some kind of decision today, then, even if it's just
Well-
doing a non-controversial piece of trail building.
Well,
we still
So
have to get
we s-
approval before
have we
we
sort
start.
of made the decision already, though, to pursue this trail, and all that's required now is the permission to proceed from the municipality,
Yeah.
from the district? So we don't have to make any decisions.
I don't think so. I think we just, we need the information. So,
Hand it off to the district can say, yes, we can start building.
yeah, and we need to know the location as well as the trail sort of type or,
Yes.
width,
Yeah.
surfacing.
So do we want to, so basically that would require the committee to kind of give something to staff, give a map or a better map or a better description or whatever, is that right?
Yeah, and Spencer said he would provide the route, so then it's more a matter of what sort of a trail is this going to be? Is it going to be similar to the loop trail, or is it going to be narrower?
No, it's gonna be rough. It's not gonna be a loop trail.
A lot of, yeah.
Okay.
So does that, do we want to try and push it all the way, this particular project that we're trying to launch, would appear we're trying to launch now, do we want to do that to the summit along the east side? Do we want to try and demonstrate, sort of map that out?
That's what I thought we were going to do.
I would be supportive of that.
Can we do that, Elaine,
Yeah.
even though it's not in the park?
Yeah, I think I think a motion would make some sense from the
Okay.
committee.
No, that's all in
So
the
we
park.
want, put forward a motion to, a motion for approval for the East Side Trail work to begin, pending
I think
mapping?
I might use the words like review or
Okay.
review and approval.
Okay,
I don't know exactly. Maybe the Smokehouse Committee wishes for a trail to be built on the east side up to the summit.
so, put forward a motion, for review and approval, of the East Side Trail to be put from the, loop trail to the summit of the Smoke Bluffs.
Along along the east.
It's not off the loop trail really.
Oh, it's
up
not.
Not really at all, it's up the east.
It comes
comes
off the
from
loop
really-
trail?
It comes from where Summer's Eve, is it Summer's Eve?
Just
Just
past
above
Summer's
Summer's
Eve.
Eve.
Yeah,
Okay.
So it's
just-
actually
yeah.
off the loop.
It is
Yeah,
off the
yeah,
loop.
yeah, off
It
the
is.
low part
Okay.
of the loop,
Yeah.
but yeah.
Elaine, can you scroll the map so we can see it lower, please?
Lower still?
Yes, please.
Yeah.
Lower still, or is that good?
Yeah.
Yeah, keep going.
Where
There you go.
is Summer's Eve?
I didn't think Summer's Eve went that far, but.
It's the blue.
Yeah, it's the blue. So
Oh, okay.
somewhere it would break off somewhere off that blue line, or because there are far more trails there than are shown in that image. I mean, there's also one that comes off from the cliff very slightly
Yeah.
further uphill. And that they're all viable. I mean, I think for a pedestrian trail, the final decision really would need to be made by the trail builders. You know, to the decision to the nearest meter would need to be made by the trail builders when they're building, not it would be hard to sort of GPS it and set it in stone, so to
I think
speak
it-
now.
Yeah, and I think a key
Yeah.
consideration, thinking, is, I mentioned this to Matt at our walkthrough, but, you know, what are the, like, are there any conflicts with other users, like the mountain bikers or trials
For sure,
riders?
Yeah.
Can I just clarify one thing? This has come up twice now. I didn't think we had mountain bike use in the park.
No, not on the loop trail.
I didn't think we had mountain bike use in the park,
I don't know.
except on that one transportation trail through. I mean, we've talked about this, and I remember it coming up a couple of years ago where there was quite a kerfuffle kicked up about an alternate route down low.
Spencer, I think you cleverly missed a number of meetings.
Yes.
And in the meantime, Elaine drafted some language
Yes, I
pertaining
saw
to that.
Isn't there like a hexagon or something in this area
That's
of the
the-
park?
The
that-
polygon?
That's
Polygon.
Spencer's polygon.
That's part of my polygon.
Yes.
I think that the trials riders and the mountain bikes, are they not? I can see your eyes
It was
getting-
No,
No,
their stuff is mostly in that right of way that comes down. They come up the backside, normally have something like High Trail, hit the top, and they'd either go down Mountain of Phlegm or they'll come down those trails down towards White Bronco that are through that hydro right of way that goes up to provide power, etc., to the radio tower. And they do come down through the front, but I've even run into district staff who have said we coach the park.
So I've seen, so when we were walking the trail on the mountain biking trail maps app,
Mhm.
there was a number of, there was, I think 5 or 6 double black runs or trails between where we were hiking and the loop trail.
Yes.
So are those trials, bike trails, or are those mountain biking trails?
Talking about.
They're- I would consider them multi-use because
Okay.
we don't build our trails for specific, sole use.
Users, yeah, okay.
We build our trails and whoever uses them, uses them, we don't care.
Oh, okay.
Just to simplify things, I mean, isn't it a reasonable statement that an east side trail is necessarily multi-use because it's already in the upper reaches. It's definitely going into areas where, at a minimum, there are trials riding going on. I don't really want to kind of speak to the mountain bike piece, but there is definitely. I mean, it is definitely it's mountain. It's going to be multi-use there.
If we make this a good trail, it could be that we actually entice mountain bikers to use it, and they will be maybe less inclined to use the cuts that they have developed that are on the private side or in that right of way. Do we want to build a pedestrian-only trail up there? It's just a question.
Yeah. So the problem with it, if it becomes, and here I'm just presenting a practical argument, not a kind of sort of moral or climbing specific argument. If you, as you come down to the bottom of the hill there on the what I believe to be the proposed trail, you end up above the various staircases on the loop trail on that side. So it is in fact a dead end for a descending wheeled vehicle of any kind. You would need to go onto Summer's Eve, and out of the park to continue downhill, which is fine by me. But that is, you know, it doesn't, in that sense, it doesn't really present a use, you know, it doesn't solve any kind of through park.
This isn't common either, but as a mountain biker, I'll sometimes carry my mountain bike up the staircase to go across Summer's Eve. But yeah, I think you're right that people come down and then they exit out Summer's Eve.
Yeah,
that would make sense.
Yeah.
And just with respect to things, Spencer, I don't think we ever said that there was no mountain biking in the park. It just wasn't encouraged, is I think the way it came out in the wash.
It's not good.
And and I mean, as a mountain biker too, I'll ride up, and it's very rare, you know, once a year, up the loop trail to the summit, and then down like Pike Trail or Labor of Love or something like that. But most of the time I'll access it if I'm going up a mountain of Flint. But sometimes I might ride up through the park, and it's not illegal, and it's not very common because it's tough.
I think, you know, I think I can speak for climbers just not wanting to comment on this. It's a very big topic for us, but I don't want to drag up what was discussed before or bring up a map of the entire mountain bike trails in Squamish and the size of the cement blocks and so forth. I've all kind of been there, done that. I'd like to not have to do that again.
Okay, well, we can
Having
move on.
lost several
I
months of
think
my life to this topic.
if we do find, if we get approval, we're a bunch of steps forward from this. So if we put it forward for review, get approval, build a trail, and we find there's a conflict, we can work towards it then, work towards
Solution.
a solution then.
I think part of it will be consultation, so I liked what you said about the different representatives sort of confirming that their groups are okay with it. I don't know whether everyone can bring it to their organizations and get some feedback.
We could complete independent walkthroughs
I
of
can
a flag
consult
trail.
with Sorka and ask
Thanks,
them
Matt.
to, and I'll bring it to the Trail Society. I don't anticipate any issue with Trail Society at all. They'd be cheering on a new hiking trail in the park or,
And I can touch base with CASBC, who's not here tonight, to make sure.
Spencer, do you think some engagement with the trials riders would make sense?
We can talk about it for sure. I mean, our primary access off that side, rarely do people use south side. I haven't ridden myself there in probably 3 years. White Bronco, I do ride that occasionally. So we're, you know, and White Bronco doesn't come up where the map says it does. It actually comes up to a slab to the right. Actually, it doesn't really ever enter the park. It enters district property. So we're outside of the park, and there's very few people that run that trail. Most of the other traffic would come down Tree Hugger, Labor of Love. That's where you'll see the traffic, because that heads over towards the quarry, and it heads over towards Pike Trail, and it links into a ton of other stuff.
Like the trials riders would be on Tree Hugger, that's what you're saying?
What Labor of Love, which kind of Tree Hugger plugs into Labor of Love, which is the piece that goes actually up into that square where the mountain FM transceiver is.
They would ride north there, like up hill?
Yes.
Okay.
Or south, downhill, down to where the junction is in Tree Hugger, and then continue back north, and you see the word Labor of Love there.
Mm-hmm.
So linking from the top around and then back out again.
Okay.
That's a pretty common loop, common use, less common on White Bronco, and incredibly rare up South Slope. What is labeled south side?
Because this certainly is the polygon area in the management plan that talks about trials riders and.
Yes.
Yeah, it's up at the top, yeah.
So we do use that. It's just, it's less seldom, and I would, you know, it's funny because in most cases I would actually advocate for separating user groups. It's a very tight little place.
Yeah.
And that's why I'm sort of toying with the idea of suggesting that we make it a pedestrian-only trail to keep mountain bikes and trials off of it. There's a certain experience that people get when they're walking a trail, And there's certain types of erosion that you get when you start to introduce other wheeled vehicles on that type of trail. There might be steps that could be dislodged that would be put in for a trail like that. And you get slopes, which are harder to walk, rather than having steps. So, I would certainly advocate for a single-use trail, given the other options that exist for wheeled or mechanized uses that exist right in that immediate area.
Okay.
Okay, so should we look at formalizing that motion? So Mel, how is this done?
So
I mean, it's a start point, right? It sounds
Yeah.
like, essentially. So, but it can go into a discussion with the districts and user groups, and then something happen without having to come back to committee. That's the thing that, I mean, I'm just again this point that if it has to come back to committee and it has to come back to committee before, then that's done. It's not in the budget for this year. It's going to be next year. Whereas if we can kind of proceed through discussion and then actually starting to do some work this year, that would be good.
Yeah, I think that is possible. Does anyone here have any concerns? And then, so there's the people at the table here, and then plus the engagement of the groups to see whether there are any concerns with this idea.
My only concern would be if it impacts the existing trail network. So if we decide, oh, this is the lane of least resistance, and we decide to build a pedestrian path over a section of trail that's used by either the trials riders or the downhill mountain bikers, and it somehow inconveniences them. But if that's taken care of in consultation with those groups, then there shouldn't be a problem.
The only place that I could see a conflict with us and for the downhill is coming down Labor of Love and then ducking down Tree Hugger. Sometimes I've seen that come down that way. Would be just that top little tiny piece of trail that would be on the ground. It would be 75 or 80 meters long. And that would be, that one section. And that's really through when you're coming off the top. I think we ran down, you and I went down, went out to a rock, and then
By Skunk
Wes
Hollow?
went down further. Pardon?
By Skunk Hollow, the little crag to the left?
No.
Skunk Hollow is not in the park, right?
Oh, okay.
Again, we're
No,
talking
this
about
is-
something different.
It's higher up.
Okay.
Yeah, it was higher up, and the thinking was at the time of putting the trail closer to the cut. And then I said, well, there's this other trail that actually exists down in Belodius Bluff, and Wes and myself and Matt will scamper down through it. That little piece that we scamper down through would be multi-use. And I can see, us having to agree that yes, you're going to run into multiple user groups here, but in terms of, as soon as you drop off of that piece, which is quite a technical descent or ascent that you're doing, the hiking trail drops off almost immediately, even before you get over that little bridge and up onto that wall. And it drops down through, it would have to be cut, but there is a nice little couple of rock shelves in there that we walk through. And that would be the pedestrian trail. So like I said, it would be at most, 80 meters or 70 meters of multi-use. And probably actually on municipal property by that point, up where the FM tower square is, not actually directly within the park.
How are we sitting with that?
This is what I have so far. That the committee requests staff to begin review and approval process for the development of the East Side Trail from Mid to Suburbs, Eve Trail north to the summit, and that staff initiate community consultation with user groups affected by new trail development in Smoke Bluffs Park.
Well,
Yeah, except for,
No.
we didn't come off Summer's Eve though. We were above Summer's Eve and we cut across parallel to it.
Yeah.
So that's the only minor
Do you
thing. Is
want
we
to
did
just
come
leave
off
it?
the loop trail. So I would just, instead of saying coming off Midsummer's Eve, just coming off the lower loop trail. I think that's more accurate.
Lower
Yeah, I
Loop Trail north to,
Lower Loop Trail, is it north of
It's north.
Summer's Eve? It's only about 50 meters.
Not even, yeah.
It is north. Yes. Yes. East is right, north is up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Is that all right with you, Elaine, there?
Well, part of the draft motion said that staff would initiate consultation with user groups, but I think what we talked about was that the
Committee?
user group representatives on Smoke Bluffs committee would initiate consultation.
Yeah, we could
Yeah.
report back.
Yes.
And I'll consult with Circa.
Okay. And I'll consult with trials.
Okay.
Initially.
And then, is there a timeline for reporting back? We should probably establish that.
So today's date is May 3rd. Does everyone, does 3 weeks seem reasonable for everyone?
I think the next step is that the GPS points have to be provided to us, and then either Spencer or we could create like a PDF of the trail that everyone would then circulate.
This would be used for the consultation.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I can't go to my committee and without some sort of.
Exactly.
And I missed that meeting, so I'm.
Spencer, do you think you could do that in the next week?
Yeah.
And then Elaine, if you need help, I can help make some sort of like a summary of what's proposed, and we can look at district trail standards,
Okay, that sounds good.
and then everybody can see if they're happy with that too.
I just want to make the point again about GPS versus reality is that when it comes to being built, it's not necessarily, it's bound to be a few meters, away from whatever. This is amazing. There are far more trails there than are shown in those. I mean, there are far more rough, approximate, deceased, kind of never used trails up
And we
there
could put a
which,
disclaimer in that said, like actual built trail will be plus or minus this many meters.
I mean,
That's pretty standard when you apply for Section 57 with the province.
It is? Okay.
Because everybody's GPS has varying degrees of accuracy.
Yeah.
And as long as you provide a GPS line, they say, okay, so, and then of course it's ground truth.
And we can update it as like,
Yes.
if we go out and look and this section's not working, we provide new points. So Mel, where are we at?
That the committee requests staff to begin the review and approval process for the development of the East Side Trail from the lower loop trail north to the summit, and that committee representatives initiate community consultation with specific user groups affected by new trail development in the park.
Okay. Does anyone want to second that? Or
I'll second.
Do we have a file type that people like to work in? For mapping?
PDF?
No. The track won't come in a PDF.
either is
SHP
AML,
probably, yeah.
GPX, whatever, it's
Yeah.
fine.
I can provide it in any,
Yeah.
so.
Yeah.
it
But
depends on
won't we
what-
need a PDF that we can circulate? So either you can create a PDF or I can give it to our mapping GIS.
I would prefer to give it to you.
Yeah, and then I can get
you
GIS
guys
to do it.
Put it on your.
Yeah, we can
Because
do
this
that.
thing, you guys have LiDAR as well.
Can
So you should
you,
be able to
if
put it on.
you get your GIS department to create a PDF that
Yeah.
is going to be sent out to people, could you ask them to send a geo-referenced PDF?
Okay,
There are apps, like Avenza PDF maps, that you can use a PDF on your phone.
Mhm.
And you'll see the little blue dot, but the background map has to be geo-referenced.
okay.
And then, so I'm gonna touch base with you, Spencer, in 1 week, or maybe Spencer and Elaine, to make sure that that's happened. And we'll keep Wes in the loop for that too, because he has a,
He GPS the whole thing as well.
Mhm. Yeah.
So
so I'll
He'll be
just-
back on Monday,
Okay,
so.
maybe touch bases with him Monday and ask him to provide his as well.
yes.
I think I GPSed it all before you went for your walk and gave it to Brian saying, here's the trail, you should follow when you go for your walk.
Can you send it to me?
Sure.
Okay, because I'd like to walk it sometime.
Okay, and then in 2 weeks, we'll aim to have some sort of draft. Does that seem reasonable, Elaine? For like a draft PDF?
I think so.
Okay. 2 weeks, PDF to user groups. And then out for a week for comment from user groups. Does that seem too short?
I think that's too short. I think at least 2 weeks.
Okay. Okay, so we'll go 2 weeks. So that'll put us at 5 weeks from today, which will be be June 7th or June 14th? It'll be June 7th. So we'll aim to have that wrapped up. Or at least some sort of,
Sounds good, and then, so Toby wanted to make sure that the steps are clear moving forward, so then what would be the next step? Say the district approves the route, then what?
I guess would the district give notice to the committee, and the committee could talk about putting, what are you laughing at?
We're not allowed to do that, are we? I mean, the committee can't make decisions outside committee,
I don't think there was any decision.
as long as there's no decision.
But it's making
fine.
a decision right now as to what happens next, though.
Yeah, so the district would let the committee know, and then the committee could talk to their independent user groups about trail building volunteers? Or is the district gonna build the trail?
Well, that's the question, is like, is it being done through the maintenance contract? Is there gonna be a contract with a trail builder? Is there gonna be volunteers?
I like the volunteer idea.
Yeah.
I don't see any
Actually, it'd be
reason.
kind of neat to get the different, some of the trials communities, some of the mountain bike communities, some of the climbing community all together actually building one trail. That'd be
Yeah,
kind of
I think
interesting.
It's
I like that.
Well, no,
I
we've
love
done
that.
it before,
Yeah, it's great.
but it was like more
Sorry,
beach
just
trails.
I have. Because I think it's got promise.
No, it's
Is that
good.
bad?
You're right, in theory, yeah.
And I don't think we have much budget, like, I mean, by the time we spend those picnic tables, we're gonna have about $1,500, which isn't much in trail building supplies, so.
We could have that trail done, God, in one day.
It's gonna be a rough
It
trail,
already
right?
exists.
Yeah,
Yeah, so,
it'll be done in a day
Yeah.
with ease, I would think, if we had 12 people.
Okay, so, Elaine, does that work? Like, is that work within our rules? Like, are we allowed to then, once the committee receives approval from the district, is it free reign for trail building? As long as, we obviously will have to,
I think so,
Adhere
there's
to
probably an
safety.
element of insurance.
Mhm.
Do you know that, Sue? If a volunteer group is gonna work in a park?
But we already work, I mean,
They already do.
they already do, right? I mean, I think volunteers are in there all the
They're
time.
covered in some way, okay.
I think they
Maybe
must.
the dogs of war.
What's that?
No.
Just trying to think it all through to make sure there's no hurdles if this moves forward.
we can also hold another meeting, is that correct? If we wanted to hold like an emergency meeting, or
Yeah, we'll
if-
hold a meeting prior to the July, but you
Yeah.
wanna do this start this a little sooner than that, yes.
well, if we, yeah, because by the July walkthrough, we can't really make decisions in the walkthrough.
No, but I mean, if there was a meeting prior, just.
Yeah, we
prior
could
to
have
the-
one prior to the July, like we could even move the September one forward too, so.
If we're moving along, this trail will be part of the walkthrough.
There you go.
So as I understand it, we've decided to build a trail.
Yeah.
We have a reasonable sense of where it's going. And we're looking for approval, but we've already made the decision.
Yes.
Yeah. And there is substantial precedent to volunteers
Yeah, if
who
this,
work in the park for the last decade plus.
yeah, if this moves forward, the district will be very grateful for the volunteer help.
Yeah, I think it should be built with volunteers.
And I think it should be built with people from all of the groups around the table.
I do. I think that would be great. Okay, so why don't we wait? So June 7th, we will aim to have all our feedback into the district, and then the district can get back to us, and then we can look at deciding if we want to hold another meeting before we get started and go from there. I think we've made quite a few.
I think that's fine. Are there any operational thoughts, Sue?
Off the top of my head, no.
Okay.
Okay. Okay, so you said trail, done. Laura, trails update.
Well, that's all I've been doing is doing that
Okay.
thing, so I think we've already covered it.
Okay,
You
perfect.
see these little blue stickers hanging off limbs, it's, my friend Krista and I have been marking because she wants to learn it as well, so,
Okay, great.
yeah.
And then Brian was up for a Crag work group, but we can postpone that. I know his main concern was getting the picnic tables at free and easy, so.
It's two, yeah, his main point was 2 picnic tables, not 1 picnic table.
Yes,
Both
Yeah.
at the same place?
and both at free and
At
easy.
the same place,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, I think he was more just a principle that we had said we would put 2, but we were getting feedback that we would only get 1, and I think his point was, well, if the committee's made a decision, shouldn't it be on it? But it sounds like there isn't he may have got the wrong, may have misinterpreted.
So-
May have built this into more of an issue than actually exists.
So 2 at free and easy, then, because I found my right notes. Good for me. It was suggested the locations, free and easy and Tunnel Rock. Does that
Just
make
take
any sense?
Tunnel Rock off. and
Take
then
Tunnel Rock off?
Both to go to free and easy.
Yeah, because I think that's actually what's in the minutes, isn't it? So 2
Okay.
from last week, last 2 months ago,
It said
there's
both.
2 picnic tables at free and easy is what the motion was.
Okay.
Is
We
it,
have made that decision.
is it obvious where they would go there?
I think in terms of micro detail, I think the assumption is that there would be, so Alan Stevenson, who's been doing the cliff work down there, would have some good opinions. There aren't many, I mean, it's kind of down by the water there, right? So it's sort of, I guess it's pretty, there aren't many options. I think you'd have,
Oh, this is the stuff down on Mount Blanchella.
yeah, yeah.
No. The only thing I'm wondering is, when very, very high tide, we used to find some of that road flooded and some of the backwater, like some of there's low areas in there. Is the ground high enough that they won't go underwater
No
at
idea.
high
I
tide?
think, I've never seen
It hasn't been flooded since the Crag's been created.
Okay,
Yeah.
so it's probably,
Doesn't look
okay.
it's
like
fine.
it gets flooded. no.
Yeah, so we used to have a trail through there
Mm.
20 years ago, but, and there was
It's
areas that
mo-
would be
it's-
flooded.
It's boggy near the zip, and the ground is really boggy.
Mm.
But at free and easy, it's not. The
Okay.
ground is dry.
So you don't have to bring in fill to put this tables on.
No.
We're used to
Well,
come down
there's-
pipe trail, or the pipeline.
Down the
Down there,
pipeline, yeah.
There's already rocks that are sort of made into picnic tables there. Strategically moved rocks. They're very nice.
Okay, so, moving on to our status of recommendations to council. So I had 3, we've already talked about the free and easy picnic tables. One was, last meeting, we looked at, or we made a recommendation for the kiosk map be provided by District of Squamish once Smoke Bluffs Trail is surveyed and information is provided to staff. So, was Wes was going to survey that, is that?
Wes and
or-
I were gonna survey that.
Okay.
We haven't gotten to it yet.
Okay, great. And then, Elaine, you mentioned briefly to me, I think, that you had you had some information from the operations staff on the UD, the recommendation for the compost toilet in the lot.
Yes, so I haven't been able to properly look into that, but I think there was a comment that it would make more sense to try to tie into septic there and build a proper washroom.
Okay.
So I was trying to go back to that motion and what was the thought behind that of having the composting toilet at the bottom parking lot? Was that sort of seen as an improvement over the porta potties?
That's my understanding.
Surely, yeah.
And I think, because I believe Gary had mentioned a few meetings back as well that the operational costs of the porta potties was quite high, especially in the summer, having to empty them out all the time. So I think that was the idea behind that.
Do you feel we need a new motion to take out the specification of it being a composting toilet and just a permanent?
I know
If
there
there
was-
is the option, if there is actually sewer access.
There's no municipal services there.
No.
How would they get water and sewer?
You said septic, right?
Oh, sorry.
You'd never get approved.
No.
It's too low.
And you'd have flat backups all the time. So what I kind of wonder about a composting toilet in a parking lot with cars, I don't know, it somehow seems like people are gonna be a bit more respectful of it if they have to walk a little bit further. I don't know,
There were toilets up the trail at one point, yes?
Yes, there
Yeah.
And of course, somebody lit them on
One of
Yeah.
them
fire. Yeah,
fire, yeah.
one of them
Yeah.
on fire. That was
But,
years.
but I mean, the one in the kids' park is working well, right?
Mm.
But that's one, it's not in a parking lot, it's a little ways from, you have to walk to it, and just seems, when you're in a parking lot, oh, there's this trash in the car, oh, I'll empty my ashtray, you know.
That is true.
Nevertheless, we made a decision at the last, we did recommend it at the
I
last
mean, it would be
meeting.
very nice to.
It's not that nothing has happened. That recommendation went to ops and they had a response,
Mm.
but we haven't had time to work it out.
Mm.
Okay.
Because I think even Darren Doak was trying to get permission to take water out of the creek for water for his shop. He doesn't even have services there, I don't think.
Oh, I see.
Is he in that,
Logging shop.
oh, yeah.
So will operations, they'll come back to us with what they think the best solution is if they don't agree with the UD? Okay.
I'd comment only, I just, I don't think I was totally in on all of that loop, so.
Those, the check parking lot, the newer houses that have gone in there, they sit on top of this large plastic sphere thing, which I gather kind of is removed or something? Or
Is it
are they
an
just pumped
empty-bowl
out?
pit kind of toilet that they can get in with like a septic truck?
So this is very climate specific, the check
Oh,
parking on
yeah,
Conroy
up the
Forest.
Conroy.
Yeah, so there are now, rather randomly, there are now 4 outhouses quite close to each other around what's now the upper campsite, because camping's been expanded there. And the new ones are built high, and they're above this large plastic sphere, right? So there's a pump out type of it.
They do that to houses in Whistler as well.
Right.
So there are houses up in Emerald
Right.
Estates, for example,
Right.
where they would have a
Yeah.
tank
Yeah.
under the house that was from me to that wall,
Yeah.
6 feet diameter.
Yeah. So those seem quite simple, that design.
Would that be
They-
sort of like the septic type system or?
No,
Oh, okay.
it's just a storage tank.
Oh, okay, it's just like a pit toilet. but for
You'd still have to
storage.
have a pump, I
Except that
believe.
it's actually a sealed storage tank that a truck
Okay.
comes in and then sticks a hose in, and
Okay.
sucks all the goodies out, and then puts the lid back on and drives away.
So the goal is to get something that is not needing to be maintained as often as the porta potty is a little
Yeah.
bit more permanent
Yeah.
and maybe sooner than if there are no services there, because that might take a long time to get a
Yeah.
real toilet.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'll talk
I
to
kind
Ops.
of like that idea that you're talking about of those larger storage ones. Because one truck comes in
Right.
very infrequently
Yeah. Yeah.
and can do a large volume.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have that same sort of level of chemical that the pit, or that the porta potties have.
So that's it for recommendations from council. Yeah, status of recommendations to council. We didn't have any referrals from council, I don't believe.
I don't think so. I have a few items though when we are doing roundtable or
Okay, so I guess, let's begin roundtable. Spencer, do you want to start and we can go
I don't have anything
clockwise?
No, all good here?
see anything.
Good, sorry.
Okay, so we have a few random items.
Sure.
One was, we have food trucks around the community, and there was the person who sort of manages that program asked me to ask you guys if you would be open to having a food truck in the Smoke Bluffs parking lot. And I don't even know with what frequency.
Can I speak to that briefly?
Yes.
I remember we talked about it before, maybe 2 years ago. And I
Okay.
think that was before the parking lot was expanded. And so I suppose what's changed is the parking lot is bigger. Because before I think we were quite against it, but I think it's because there wasn't much space. Speak to personally, I think it feels like a better idea than it was then.
Do we want to take a show of hands?
No.
What, in midsummer, would there
Be
be
any
enough
space?
room? Yeah, would there be space for it?
It would certainly come at the expense of somebody of a parking space.
Yeah, well, several parking
Yeah.
spaces.
Yeah.
Yes.
Probably two, not too many.
It's a neat idea.
Toby, were we
I think
filling
it's-
up last summer?
So we actually my son surveyed the parking all through last year, and for sure the parking there are moments when the parking lot fills completely.
Okay.
Yeah, but they are the obvious times typically.
Lunchtime?
I'm not against the idea either. I think it's fine. I see them parking sometimes at the hospital often, at the brew places, sometimes downtown. It's probably helpful if they have a regular routine, like if it's on a Wednesdays or whatever, and the committee maybe knows the times, but
Does
I'm
the
not
district get revenue from it? Must do, surely.
I don't actually know.
just for business
At least
licenses.
permitting, yeah.
Yeah.
My one thing is if we are going to vote to approve this, is I think that there should be some thought put into like wildlife attractants too. Because right now we do have a bunch of bears in the park. I see them in the summer, but if we have like a regular food source in the parking lot, then like the garbages are going to need to be maintained more. And even though we do have the bear-proof garbages there, but still just makes me, I feel like it would draw bears to kind of like that lower lot. But there's probably less attractants now that the van camping's not being encouraged.
Is there somewhere in the lot that you would recommend over another location in the lot?
Is there a specific proposal?
Like a specific company or time or location?
Yeah, I mean,
Yeah.
I find it much easier to think about it, is somebody proposing something that we can actually talk about?
Okay.
They want to put it here, they want to do it during these time periods, blah, 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 blah.
Yeah. Okay, I can find out more.
And I just find this sort of, do we, approve or not approve of food trucks is a very amorphous conversation for me.
Okay.
I don't disagree, in principle.
I'll get more information.
Okay. That's fine.
I'm thinking little hot dog wagons are food carts and so are, 5-ton trucks, for movie sets.
Totally.
It's an established program, isn't it? At the moment? I mean, I noticed they're rotating past at the hospital. There's a new one there seems to be a different one every day.
Like
Yeah.
different companies.
Well, this is of 2
Different
days.
kinds of
This is
food.
inferring from 2 days. I guess it started in May. It appears to be rotating.
I was at our offices in Vancouver and there's a spot across the street from our offices and there's anywhere from 3 to 4 food trucks. And yes, they do rotate through, so you don't have the same 3 every single day.
Yeah.
I don't know how they work that out, but
I know the program has expanded. For a while, there was a limit of 5 food trucks. And then I'm guessing that trial period, ran its course and now there's more.
Do they allow them at Brennan Park?
I don't know.
And
Do they?
it could be something too that we allow as a trial period and see if problems arise as well.
I think they have at events.
because we would probably end up having to install things like additional picnic tables was discussed as well. There would be additional issues with refuse. There would be additional expenses that the district would incur through the maintenance of the park and establishing the infrastructure for it. Was that?
Okay, so Elaine, you'll get back to us with more information?
I will, yeah.
Did you have anything else for Roundtable?
I do, I have 2 other items. So the other is, there's some new signage in the park, and I'm assuming that that the contractor must have put this up. I just wanted to point out that what it has is it's actually the green background, and then it's got the new Squamish logo, which is great, but it's got the color version. And this is a minor thing, but where there's a color background, we actually use a white logo. So just wanting to make sure that everyone's aware of that and,
That was probably my boo-boo.
yeah, no.
Because when they were getting made up, it was asked and I went, do it.
Okay, so just before more are made, that's
No, that's
how it
great,
works.
yeah.
Sorry.
Yeah,
Keep with the branding and the.
yeah.
It was a do it.
And then, yeah.
Go ahead.
So then just further to signage, there is I'm sure you guys have noticed the wayfinding signs around town that went up last year. So that was phase 1, and there's actually 5 phases of wayfinding signage. So phase 2 is actively underway, which is sort of reviewing and assessing the ones that are up, and then developing the plan for the next phases. And so the Smoke Bluffs Park has certainly been considered in that. There is a staff member from Economic Development that's spearheading that initiative, and she'll come and talk to this committee when things are more progressed, so probably the meeting in the fall. So I don't know what more to say about that, but signage for Smoke Bluffs Park is actively being discussed, whether
That's
it's like
great.
a destination signage, like you're at Smoke Bluffs Park, as well as consideration of getting you to Smoke Bluffs Park. And then I think that's all I had.
Toby?
I don't know.
Helen? No. Okay, I had one thing, and it's more just a question for the committee. So I noticed on a local climbing forum, there was mention, Toby, you likely saw this, of someone looking for crash pads to do a dry tooling highball, which is like.
I zoned out on that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So so basically it's like, what he's looking at, I believe, is bouldering with ice axes or ice tools. But I didn't engage in it. Brian asked him on the forum if where in the park he was going to. But my question is, does this fall against any of our management or route development guidelines for the park? And I don't believe we go specifically into that sort of stuff. But I just want to make
What's
sure.
the potential impact? I don't know this at all.
Well, using ice tools on established climbs can ruin the climbs, but I am personally of the opinion that the community will police that.
Yeah, I think it's too granular for this.
Okay. I just wanted to bring it up.
That does raise another topic. It's just occurred to me that is of interest to me, is whether what's in those original sort of framing documents for the park, include things like anchors being mandatory above all the climbs. Do we know that?
Oh yeah.
Was that
there's been-
something that was sort of agreed at the formation of when the park was first formed?
Oh, that's kind of.
I can think of a climb that doesn't have to be.
Can you?
Sure.
Yeah, it's funny. I can
It's a
too.
popular climb.
I can too. It's yeah.
Attempts have been made to put anchors at the top.
So there's
Why-
been
sorry,
some,
so
there's
there's a bit
been
of a
some
joke, yeah.
pictures posted of someone using an anchor incorrectly, which kind of spurs talks about certain types of anchors being placed over popular climbs, or some climbs historically have no anchors. And typically that's up to the route developer to sort of set that precedent, but that's not always agreed upon within the community either. But there's a few climbs within the Smoke Bluffs that are historical. When someone puts an anchor on them, they get removed. And there's a few climbs that have anchors without rappel rings. So it's it's a very frequent discussion within the community.
But it's something, I mean, I think for us as an access group, if the land owner / manager has dictated a certain style, that's obviously their prerogative, and climbers should adhere to that, right? I mean, so that was where my question comes from as well. This is something that was actually enshrined in the original sort of agreements about the park when it was first formed. But sorry, it's kind of a big, I mean, it's
Yeah, we can look into it. I didn't see anything in the bylaw.
It sounds really granular.
Sorry, granular. I thought it was less granular than the other thing, which is good.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well,
I could almost see the, discussion taking place about when somebody establishes a climb, what does that mean? And does that give that person any rights to the climb in
Yeah.
perpetuity?
Yeah.
Whether that's naming or the route or the way it's climbed or the type of protection that's put onto it. I can see that higher level.
Yeah. So in fact, what
Guidance provided.
what we're talking about really is the difference between convention and culture within a sport and actual legal reality. So as if you own, if you own land and you say to a user group, well, you can do your sport on my land, but you've got to adhere to these standards, then we're in the world of, I guess, law or at least documents.
I guess in the management plan, it says we have to adhere to the best practices for route development, so we can look in that too. Let me see. Okay, well, I think that's something
Anyway,
that we
sorry,
can't
that's
really
too complicated.
solve here, but does anyone have anything else? Okay, for the motion to close the meeting? Or not close the meeting, terminate the meeting?
Sure.
Okay.